What's up, my friends, and welcome into the PHLY Phillies Podcast. As always, we broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge here at the PHLY Studios, and we're brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And, of course, Trumark Financial Credit Union as well. Head on over to any one of their 24 branch locations or go online 24/7, trumark.com/PHLY to get started. A happy Wednesday to each and every one of you across the Delaware Valley and beyond. For the second time in two shows, the Phillies make a move 20 minutes before the show starts. This one, not as scramble drill for us, but we're still going to talk about it. So we've had to make some updates to the show. So we will get into the Brad Keller conversation in just a little bit, but we do have a probably bigger picture conversation to begin today's show. So here's what's coming up on the PHLY Phillies podcast. We're going to start with a kind of direct quote, indirectly, from Dave Dombrowski, who spoke yesterday and said that the outfield is pretty much set. And we'll see how that unfolds and what that means for this team and why that's probably not a good thing for the outfield offense in 2026. Brad Keller does sign a 2-year, $22 million deal with the Phillies about 20 minutes before the show started, so we'll do that. We'll talk about the latest in the Tatsuya Imai finalist sweepstakes. Apparently, there are about 5 teams that have shown real interest. Do we know if the Phillies are one of them? Do we know if the Phillies are a finalist? We'll talk about that as well. And, of course, it's a Wednesday, which means we'll wrap up today's show with an episode of Remember Me, which we will do at the end of today's show with Ethan Hartley, who's back with us today. Tyler Zula here with you. Thanks so much to everybody who's hanging out in the chat. And we will get to the Brad Keller conversation in just a second. But I wanted to start today with the comments about the outfield that were made by Dave Dombrowski. And I'll show you a quote from him in just a little bit. We'll get to that in a moment. But after signing Adolis Garcia to a 1-year, $10 million deal, Dave Dombrowski seemed to hint that this is pretty much it. This is the team that they're going to go into camp with outfield-wise. And listen, I'm going to sit here and say this right off the jump. No general manager, no president of baseball operations is going to show you their hand entirely. But Dave Dombrowski has been a pretty candid and frank and honest president of baseball operations over the years. And although he does sometimes like to kind of like lurk in the shadows of trades and things like that, think about the Jesus Luzardo trade that we didn't really expect. Think about the ability to go out and get Joan Duran and Harrison Bader, which, you know, neither of those guys were locks by any means, but they went out and did it to better them in the trade deadline. But I don't think that Dave Dombrowski is like secretive or sneaky. You know, when I think about guys that hold their cards really close to their chest, I think about Alex Anthopoulos specifically. But with Dave Dombrowski, usually when he says things, I kind of take him on his face value. Now, it doesn't mean it's entirely going to be the end of the conversation, but I do think that there is value in him telling you the offense is pretty much set. I will say this, I don't think it comes as much as of a surprise in terms of this is kind of what we expected with their ability to spend money, what the market value dictated. But I will also acknowledge and totally respect that it has elicited a lot of pushback from Phillies fans. And honestly, I really can't blame you for that. This is not an outfield that makes me go, that's a World Series winning caliber team. I will say there is merit to say this team has won 90 games in 3 consecutive seasons. They've been to a World Series. They've won the division back-to-back years. They are a good team. And I don't want to lose sight of that. They are still a good team. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the outfield is complete and that it is, you know, bringing me a whole bunch of confidence heading into 2026. Adolis Garcia, we have said this plenty. It makes sense to sign him. Even though I wasn't super high on that, and we'll get to that in a little bit, it made sense to sign him. But the conversation of what if that's it was an important one and a very real one for Phillies fans, and justifiably so. If that's it, it's not bringing in that much more confidence than it did with the team that you had last year. So last year, the Phillies had a negative 3.8 WAR from their 3 outfield spots. That was good for 26th in baseball. The only teams that were worse, the Rockies, the Royals, the Guardians, the Pirates, and the White Sox. You know how many of those teams made the postseason? 1. Again, the Guardians, who are not an offensive, especially slugging and OPS-minded team. They made the postseason. The Rockies, the Pirates, the White Sox, among baseball's worst teams. The Royals, well overperformed in 2024, missed the playoffs in 2025. To break it down even further, by position, the Phillies finished 24th in OPS with a 667 OPS from left field combined. They finished 12th in center field with a 730, but it was primarily boosted by Harrison Bader's 828 OPS in that like 200 plate appearances since joining the team at the trade deadline. The next closest was Brandon Marsh, who was at 745, but you compare that to his 825 in left field, the reality is Brandon Marsh is a left fielder. He's not a center fielder. And then Johan Rojas was third at 575. OPS. That's where they were at center field. So they were 12th, but I think it was really helped by the fact that Harrison Bader had an excellent final 2 months of the season. And then in right field, they were dead middle of the pack, 15th at 732. Nick Castellanos was a 696. He took the bulk of the plate appearances in right field. So to put it to you in that perspective, in terms of OPS, the Phillies were average or below average in 2 of the 3 different positions. Then you break it down individually to slugging and OBP, and then finally into the extra metrics. They were 19th in outfield slugging last year with a 400. Which means they finished 1 spot above being in the bottom third. They were 18th in outfield OBP at a 310. They ranked 19th or worse in strikeout percentage, isolated power, walk percentage, home runs, RBI, and WRC+. That's 6 statistical categories in which they were basically in the bottom third across baseball for 3 of the 9 spots in their lineup. And that includes the good time that Harrison Bader put together. That includes the strong month and a half that Brandon Marsh put together post All-Star break. That includes Max Kepler having a strong September to buoy himself a little bit after a dreadful beginning to the season. So all of that is to say, the Phillies got marginal outfield productivity from the offensive side of things this year, which comes from that stem of Harrison Bader's 2 months and Brandon Marsh from June till August. That's it. That's basically where most of your outfield offensive productivity has come from this team. So all of this is to say, it brings me to want to believe 3 things. First and foremost, this is not a knock on Justin Crawford. You have heard me talk about Justin Crawford on this show before. I value Justin Crawford. I think Justin Crawford can be a major league player. I have long advocated for him to be called up because, quite frankly, there is nothing else Justin Crawford can do in the minor leagues at AAA. He's either going to hit or he's not at the major league level. And I'm somebody who still does value batting average, and I think it can help tell your story in a positive direction. I understand that baseball has kind of skewed away from batting average to care more about hard hit percentages and slugging and OPS. And all of that is fine because it allows players like Kyle Schwarber to become some of the better hitters across baseball. All of these guys fit your puzzle pieces in a certain way to build your lineup. But I do still believe that batting average has value. Getting on base has value when you have players behind those hitters who can drive those runners in. And that is where I think Justin Crawford can still have value at the major league level. He has hit for average everywhere he is gone. Now, does that negative launch angle or close to zero launch angle mean something at the big league level? Of course it does. Defenders are at their best at the big league level. Is he going to put the ball on the ground too much and maybe hit into more outs than he did at the AAA level? I certainly think it's plausible. I'm not asking him to hit 330, but I think it's a guy who, if he hits 270 to 290, there's a spot for him in the lineup. Now, I will also say this. I'm not expecting any power from Justin Crawford, and I don't think you are either. I don't know if it ever comes, but I definitively know it's not going to come this season if he's in the major league lineup. So that's one position where, while you have a guy who I think can do a good job of getting on base, who I think can do a good job of having a strong batting average, who I think can be disruptive on the base paths because he's a good base stealer, and it would add to a group of good base stealers with Bryson Stott and Trey Turner and just more aggressive base runners like Bryce Harper sometimes do his detriment. But the point being is you have some good base runners on this team, and Justin Crawford can add to that mix. So I want to be abundantly clear, this is not Justin Crawford's fault that he's in this conversation. I just think he gets caught up in the frustrations of Phillies fans because of the rest of what it feels to be complacency in the offense. But if you're going to have Justin Crawford in your everyday lineup, you need some power from somewhere else. And it certainly isn't coming from left field. because Brandon Marsh is not a power hitter. Whomever you platoon with him as a right-handed complement probably is not going to be an elite power hitter. And you have Adolis Garcia in right field, which brings me to point number 2. I think they're hoping to generate power specifically from Adolis Garcia. Strictly banking on Adolis Garcia is a foolish move. As we said on Monday, I'm not over the moon about the signing, but I understand why they did it. While his numbers are all kind of trending in the wrong direction over the last 3 seasons, I understand that there was a need from both perspective in terms of they needed some kind of pop from the right side, some kind of spark, some juice, some push that they did not get in 2025, and that's why they signed Adolis Garcia. I also understand that the market outlook for the amount of money that they were going to spend was probably pretty barren. But all of this is banking on an if, and it's a lot of hypotheticals, and it's a lot of what happens if this happens. And if Adolis Garcia is the player that he was in 2025, you're not getting pop really from there either. If you get teen home runs, 18, 19 home runs, that's what Max Kepler hit in 2025. I understand that adding Adolis Garcia immediately makes your defense better. No question about it. That is the surface level good to this deal. No matter what happens at the plate, defensively, you're better in right field than you were a season ago. But you are banking on a lot of ifs. What if he played every game at Citizens Bank Park last year is something I've heard quite a bit. His home run total would jump from 19 to 22. I mean, it's a better number. I think having that 20 rounded number feels more palatable, but it's not like you're setting the world on fire. It feels to me like you are putting a lot of your eggs in the Adolis Garcia basket. And if it doesn't pan out, your offense in the outfield is once again not going to be particularly good. So I refuse to let this be the only move that bolsters the roster, which is something that I'm going to get back to in just a second, because I think they have limited themselves on where they can sign. But what it does bring me to now, to this point about Adolis Garcia, gets me to Dave Dombrowski's comments the other day about Garcia. And this is what Dave Dombrowski had to say, in part, about Adolis Garcia and why they valued him in the 2026 season. The quote is, quote, "The tools are there. The ball jumps off his bat still. The bat speed's still there. Exit velocity is very good. Those are all things we feel encouraged about." Don't lie to me. I don't like being lied to. I don't appreciate it. We all have access to the Baseball Savant page. It's free. You go on www.baseballsavant.com and you can look up anything that you want. Numbers don't lie. Quote, "Bat speed is still there." No, it's not. You're straight up lying on that one. Bat speed is not there. It's down 1.5 miles an hour since 2023. He's down from 73.6 miles an hour bat speed to 72.1 miles an hour bat speed. That's an abject lie. I don't like being lied to. Don't tell me that his bat speed's still there. It's depreciated pretty significantly. Next part, ball jumps off his bat. Debatable. Barrel rates and hard hit percentages have both jumped or dropped in 20th percentile rankings since 2023. They're down 3% and 5% respectively over that time. So it's debatable if you want to say it's still there. I guess metrically it's still there because he goes from being in the 90th percentile to the 70th percentile, which still puts him above average, which I can't argue with. But it's debatable if you want to argue compared to 2023. And then the last one, exit velo is still there. This one's true. That's not it's a factual statement. He was at 92.1 miles an hour exit velocity in 2023. He was at the exact same number last season in 2025. But the problem with that is when you're not hitting the ball as hard and you're barreling it less, it doesn't really matter if you hit the ball 1,000 miles an hour. All of your other numbers are going to go down. If you're not getting on base, if you're not driving in runs, if your power is down. So you can hit the ball as hard as you want, but that just tells a small sample size of the story. If you're putting the ball on the ground, they're out. If you're hitting the ball at somebody, they're out. If you're hitting flyouts, they're outs. And so listen, this is not to roast Adolis Garcia by any means. This is more pointed to you, Dave Dombrowski. I don't like being lied to. And I feel like I got lied to in that quote, or duped at least. Because the first part of it is just blatantly false. His bat speed's down. It's not only looking at a Baseball Savant page, it's watching him with my eyeballs tell me that his bat speed is down. And so I just feel that entire quote is something that if I just go on Baseball Savant and look at it, it's just blatantly false. I am not sitting here and telling you it's a bad signing. A 1-year, $10 million deal, as our buddy Jamie Lynch always says, there's no bad 1-year deals. We've seen bad 1-year deals play out, but giving out a 1-year deal is not necessarily ever a bad thing. Sure, they gave out a 1-year deal to Jordan Romano. Terrible deal. By the way, Ethan, Jordan Romano got a job yesterday. Major league job. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. He got a major league job this week. I don't know how, but he did. You give Jordan Romano a 1-year deal, doesn't work out. Oftentimes you give a 1-year deal, it's a trial run, right? The 1-year, $10 million deal, if it doesn't work out, hey, thanks for being here. We'll see you. Good luck in your future endeavors. If it does work out, you end up getting a bigger productive value than what you expected. I am not sitting here like blasting a 1-year deal and saying, oh, it's a terrible deal and the sky is falling and what a stupid move and blah, blah, blah. But what I am saying is it can't be the only move, which gets me to point number 3. Now, this doesn't mean that the Phillies are done entirely, but it does put pressure on them of some sorts to sign somebody else that's not re-signing JT Realmuto. JT feels like an inevitable signing at this point, but the holdup is getting frustrating, but he does feel like an inevitable signing at this point. And the problem with this, knowing that JT is very likely going to be back and the 3 outfield spots feel to be, as Dave Dombrowski said, pretty set in stone, until that materializes, you have basically shut off 44% of your roster in terms of signing positional groups and bringing in somebody that could help this team. And that's where I think fans are going to continue to grumble. Because 4/9 of your batting order are basically shut off. And you know that you re-signed your DH. It was the right move. You needed to bring Kyle Schwarber back. You know that you have your first baseman in place in Bryce Harper. That's another 2 positional players in that conversation. You know you have your shortstop at seeing money talk in the conversation at the 3rd position. So that really kind of gets you to now, what, second base, third base? That's pretty much it. And so while I understand that these things take time, and while I also understand that they're not going to throw all of their cards and caution to the wind, it does tell me that the Phillies have basically put themselves in a spot that if they are going to get another big-time name, it's going to come in only one of 2 positions. It's going to come from either signing or trading for a third baseman, or it's going to come from signing or trading for a starting pitcher. That's really the only thing left that I can think of. I don't think they're in a Ketel Marte sweepstakes. We talked to our buddy Derek from PHNX. He seems to not think that there is one. But I think the only 2 rational spots that are left in terms of making that splash move that you're anticipating, assuming JT is back, because if he doesn't end up signing, then you open up the catcher position, obviously. But assuming that JT is back, it's third base and starting pitching. And that's pretty much it. And so for those that are angry or frustrated or begrudgingly like looking at 2026 and saying it feels like they're not doing a whole lot of different, even with signing Adolis Garcia, I understand your frustrations. I do. And I think that if you're going to sit here and tell me that the outfield is pretty much set, you either have to have a free agent third baseman or trade in mind, or you're still in on a guy like Tatsuya Imai. That's, to me, those are your choices at this point. You've bolstered your bullpen. We'll talk about that next. You brought your DH back. Again, the right move. I have no qualms with re-signing Kyle Schwarber whatsoever. You need to keep that power in your lineup. Your team is pretty well set at a multitude of positions. And so with all of that, you really have limited yourself on the big swing type of moves that you can make. And that's where I think people are getting frustrated. And so to kind of wrap this up, and I want to welcome our second member of today's program into the show. That's our producer, our co-host. That's our buddy Ethan Hartley, who is back from taking his finals. So first of all, how'd finals go?
It's done.
They happened?
Yeah.
It was a thing that happened?
It happened and it's done.
So are you officially on winter break?
Pretty much, yeah.
Nice.
I return. What's the one holiday on a Monday in January?
President's Day?
Yeah.
Specifically on a Monday, you mean?
Yeah. I always get mixed up with that and Martin Luther King Day. Is that in February?
Hold on. Let me look at the calendar to give you an idea.
It's one of those. That's when I go back.
Let me look at the calendar so we don't tell you the wrong thing. You go back. The holidays in January are...
It's one of those that always falls on a Monday. And
Martin Luther King Day is Monday the 19th.
Okay.
So that would be the day you go back?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're heading back on the 19th. So like a nice four-week stretch, right?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. It's over with. One more semester left after that.
And then you got to go to the real world.
So, yeah.
I mean, I guess you're already really in it.
Hey,
You have a job already, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? President's Day is in February. I apologize. Martin Luther King Day is on the 19th.
Dude, come on.
year.
You can't get your holidays wrong.
What's that?
You can't get your holidays wrong.
Martin Luther King Day is the 19th. February. President's Day is the 16th of February.
Yeah, I always get those mixed up.
Anyway, so congratulations to you on another
Thank you.
semester being done, one step closer to being done your schooling. Let me ask you. You know that I don't do impassioned rants a lot, right? I don't do a whole lot of like shoot from the hip, angry, or even I don't even do a whole lot of like excited ones too. I try to stay pretty even keel. So when you know that I get mad or excited or happy or whatever, there's reason behind it. I'm kind of annoyed today. And I'm specifically annoyed at Dave Dombrowski. Like, I understand baseball and all sports work in a certain way where you have finite amount of money, you have certain amount of pool you can spend. You're not going to, like, even in baseball where you have technically unlimited money, the Phillies have a pool of money they're going to spend. But I do feel frustrated that they have basically told me a 1-year deal and a rookie and a platoon is how they are going to justify their offense in 2026. When they struggled with Johan Rojas, Brandon Marsh, Nick Castellanos, Max Kepler, and then the addition of Harrison Bader late in the season. But for a bulk of the season, it was those four guys. Otto Kemp they seem to love Otto Kemp. I think Otto Kemp's a nice player. But if they're banking on Otto Kemp being added to that foursome, still doesn't elicit a whole lot of excitement. Mm-hmm. Am I like off base here to be kind of frustrated at the way that Dave Dombrowski has approached and like specifically what he said? I feel like I'm just being lied to.
Well, yeah, specifically to that quote, it's like, you know, numbers like that aren't hard to find anymore. You know, 50 years ago, sure, like you could get away with a comment like that, and it was your own eye judgment of where that number lies. Now there's so much technology out there to calculate all that, when you can just, you know, do a quick Google search and see that, you know, all right, this is not what the case is of what you're saying. So either you are really failing at your job, or you're, again, deliberately lying to the people that are expecting you to, you know, there's a lot of pressure on your back at this point, and to say a comment like that, I don't know. I'm in the same boat. It's annoying, and to go one step further with it, it's the same kind of like bare minimum line they've done beforehand. There's never really been like a full like Hail Mary type of trade to really kind of push this team over the edge, outside of maybe Trey signing after the World Series.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, they've spent their... I'm not going to begrudge them. I've said this before. We are lucky to say we follow and cover and root for one of maybe, I don't know, 8 or 9 teams in baseball who really actually will spend money. You think about the moves they've made over the last, you know, almost 6 years now, I guess. So since they traded for JT and signed Bryce Harper, right? Traded for JT and re-signed him. Signed Bryce Harper. Signed Trey Turner. Signed Zach Wheeler, and then re-signed him to the highest AAV for a pitcher ever. Maybe not ever, but at least currently,
close,
right?
Yeah.
But I'll dive back into that. Re-signed Aaron Nola. You can argue that was the wrong move or the right move, but re-signed Aaron Nola to a pretty sizable extension. So willing to bring him back.
It had to get done based on that moment. Like, you're not going to let him walk.
A willingness to not let him walk, right? Have traded for Joan Duran, Carlos Estevez, Harrison Bader, those 3 guys specifically, because then you look at like the rest of them and it's Austin Hayes. It's minor moves. But I think they have been sign Nick Castellanos, sign Kyle Schwarber, and then re-sign Kyle Schwarber. They've been willing to spend the money, which I will never fault them for. A team willing to try to spend money is always a good thing. There have been misallocation of funds. Taijuan Walker, Nick Castellanos. You know, I think you again argue Aaron Nola, yes or no. There's been a misallocation of funds at spots, but you're never going to hit 100%. But after you go and spend all of your money, you now finally are at a spot where next year you have some financial flexibility. This year you were always going to be kind of beholden to, do you re-sign the big 3? The big 3 being Schwarber, Ranger, JT. Looks like they're probably going to bring back 2. Ranger being the one that they don't. Next year, Taijuan Walker's money comes off the books. Nick Castellanos' money comes off the books. Somebody else, fairly sizable, I think, comes off the books. But either way, you have a little bit of financial flexibility next season. It's kind of why I talk about the Imai thing. Yeah, sure, you would eat a pretty hefty bill in 26, but that opens up in 27. And if you don't know what the future looks like for Jesus Luzardo, I think you got to take a swing at the starting rotation. I think you got to take a swing somewhere else because the reality is this is an aging core. And while I do think they still are in a window to win, they're closer to the end of it than the beginning of it.
100%.
And so I'm fully been in. I know we're way over. I apologize, Ethan. I'm fully in on Justin Crawford getting a chance to play at the big league level. But it can't just be Marsh platoon, Justin Crawford, Adolis Garcia. That to me doesn't work enough. And I think that's what they're going to end up going with. So I think at this point, you either need to figure out third base and upgrade third base, or you need to bring another starting pitcher in. And I will take a wait-and-see approach. I guess I have to. Let's take a break. On the other side, we'll get into the news that broke this afternoon. Brad Keller signs with the Phillies on a 2-year deal. I just gave Dave Dombrowski a lot of crap for 25 minutes. I'm going to give him credit on this one. I think this could turn out to be a heck of a signing. We'll talk about more about that. The Tatsuya Imai conversation. We'll finish up with Remember Me. It's the PHLY Phillies podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge. We'll be right back after this. All right, with the winter months in full swing, you know that means we have an incredible slate of sports across a bunch of different platforms, whether it be pro football playoffs about to start, college football playoff in full swing, and how about this, pro hockey, pro hoops, and college hoops, all right there for your watching enjoyment. And if you call yourself a sports fan, you have to get Xfinity. There's no lagging, no buffering, no switching between apps. It's just the best sporting destination where you can find all of the best games and your favorite teams all in one place. It's the perfect fan flex where you get all of that action right there in your living room. And with crystal clear optics, enhanced sound with 4K, it's going to feel like you're at the arena or at the stadium anyway, and you don't have to worry about battling traffic and paying for tickets. And sometimes you can have up to 4 games going at once with the quad box, because why not? You can. And on top of that, you get real-time notifications and live stats right there on your TV. So next game day, make sure that big fan in your life isn't a big fail. Tell them to learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Whether your favorite team wins or not, there's always another way to win with our friends at the BetParx online casino app. You can check out incredible new casino games like Huff and More Puff and Fireblaze Sky Queen, which is a BetParx exclusive. It's just a small reason as to why it's the only app that I would ever use to play all of my favorite casino games right there in the palm of my hand. I can play blackjack, roulette, craps, slot, poker, baccarat, and so much more. And those hot online slots like Cash Eruption and 88 Fortune, or incredible slot games based on your favorite streaming shows like The Walking Dead, Squid Game, Peaky Blinders, and so much more. And how about this? Right now, new users get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. So what you're going to do, head on over to betparx.com, download the app right now, and enjoy all of the action and the excitement right there at the casino, right there from your fingertips. You must be 21 and physically located in PA, New Jersey, Maryland, or Michigan for BetParx. You love to play, you play to win, you bet, BetParx. Gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zulli, Ethan Hartley, and everybody hanging out in the chat. Big thanks to everybody here in the chat today. And yes, thank you to Ryan and Andrew, both mentioning Alvarado is on the final year of the deal. Matt Strahm on the final year of the deal. I think that clears up almost $17 million between the two of them, maybe even a little bit more. But again, it's more monetary flexibility that you're going to have in 2027 that you may not necessarily have in 26. So you would kind of have to eat the bill a little bit in 26. But it's $20 million from Castellanos, $18 million from Taijuan Walker. That gets you to $38 million. And then the other ones, as we mentioned, Strahm is, I think he's making 9 this year. I want to say it's like 9.5 or something like that. Alvarado's at about 9 as well. So, you know, you're talking about a sizable amount of money, 40 some odd, 50 some odd $1 million. That's a pretty sizable amount of money that you could, you know, again, you're going to have to kind of say, hey, 2026, we're paying luxury tax, and it is what it is. But I do think that if you want to look forward, that makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. Now, before we get to the Brad Keller signing, which was for 2 years and $22 million, I've seen it mentioned in the chat a couple of times, Luke Weaver signs a deal with the Mets for the exact same amount of money, 2 years and $22 million. Now, Ethan and I talked about Luke Weaver a bunch a couple of weeks ago, and he was somebody that I was super, super intrigued in because his stuff was good. Maybe a down year per se in New York last year compared to 24, where he was striking everybody out. I think he had 125 strikeouts and like 80 innings pitched. The one thing about Luke Weaver that I was a little bit concerned about was that he was in the 1% ground ball rate, which doesn't play at in Yankee Stadium, and it doesn't play at Citizens Bank Park. So that's something you would have had to improve upon. But I was intrigued in adding a right-handed reliever, potentially a right-handed reliever with some stuff, and somebody that could probably fill in, at worst, behind Orion Kerkering, but hopefully in between Joan Duran and Orion Kerkering from the right side. And I think that's what the Phillies did today with adding Brad Keller. As much as I griped for the first 25 minutes of the show about the Phillies not doing enough offensively, I will give them credit for this deal. I think this is an excellent signing by the Phillies. I think this could turn out to be a really sneaky good contract. Now, if you think about Brad Keller, it's not a name that immediately jumps out to you right away. But last year, he was awesome. He posted a 2.08 ERA last year for the Cubs, and we can take a look at his numbers here in just a second in 2025. But his numbers were awesome. His metrics were good. His stuff has gotten better and better and better as his career has unfolded. So he really kind of made the shift to the bullpen a few seasons ago. And here you see his numbers from last year. 68 appearances. I apologize. I shortchanged him. A 2.07 ERA. Pitched just under 70 innings, 75 strikeouts, just 22 walks, and he only issued 45 hits. It was a 0.962 ERA. And you know I love my Baseball Savant pages. Heck of a lot of red for Brad Keller last year. An awesome season for Keller in a bunch of different factors. Fastball velo was way up from a season ago. Average exit velocity, he kept the ball, he limited hard contact in a really, really good way. 94th percentile in average exit velocity. Hard hit percentages, 99th percentile. And then the barrel rates were good. The ground ball rates, excellent, 95 percentile, a 56.6% ground ball rate. Generates a solid amount of whiff, gets a decent amount of chase. His strikeout rate, 27.2% last year. There is a whole heck of a lot to like just based on Brad Keller's 2025. Now, I will say this. This was a breakout year for Brad Keller in terms of his numbers. He has never had a season this good prior to 2025. 2024, he pitched to a 5 ERA. He only made 16 appearances. His last full season in the bigs, he was a starter with the Kansas City Royals, 5.09 ERA. He made 35 appearances. But I will say the reason I have confidence, and I'm not going to ask him for another 2.07 ERA, but I am feeling confident in a good season and a good 2 seasons is because of his ability to now be a consistent reliever. This is really the first year, last year was, that he made most of his appearances out of the bullpen. This is the first year that he has been a guy who has settled into a bullpen role. And the reason that I disagree with you, Broad Street Bullies, in calling him the fluke of the year, the stuff is sizably better. Fastball velocity is up over 3 miles an hour from his season average. His jump was from like 93, 94 to 97 last year. He features a 5-pitch mix, all of which he's used at least 12% of the time. Fastball, slider, sweeper, sinker, changeup. He used all at least 12% of the time. The sweeper is nasty. He uses that almost exclusively against right-handed hitters. Think of it as his strikeout pitch, his put-away pitch against right-handed hitters. He runs it away from them. And opponents last year, now this mostly means against righties, but opponents as a whole last year hit .067 off of the sweeper with a 45% whiff rate. He runs that sinker as well on the hands of righties. He's going to use it to help generate that ground ball percentage, which was up substantially from the course of his career to the 56% ground ball rate that you saw last year. As we said, fastball velocity has gotten sizably better. He limits hard contact. He gets a solid amount of both whiff and chase, and his velos have gone up across the board. As much as I've been down on the outfield to start today's show, and as much as I am understanding that I'm not expecting a reliever to put together back-to-back 2.07 ERA seasons. Everything else tells me I'm expecting a good year. And if you get a guy who pitches to a 3.2, I think this is a good signing. If you get a guy who pitches to a 2.8, I think this is a great signing. But for a group that I think was missing one right-handed reliever, specifically somebody who could slot towards the middle portion of the bullpen, specifically somebody who can throw hard but also throw strikes, because they've had some guys in the bullpen over the last couple of years who throw hard but can't locate, and that's been a problem. But if you have somebody now who has generated outs, last year specifically, but has been able to pitch in high-leverage situations, pitched at Wrigley Field, and kept the ball down there, I feel pretty confident that he has the ability to make those same types of strides again. I'm not asking for a 2.07 ERA, but if you get anywhere from 2.8 to 3.2, 3.3, I think this is another addition to the bullpen that is going to be an excellent signing for the Phillies. So while I am still definitely frustrated about the way that the offense has transpired, I think this is a good move in terms of the pitching staff for the Phillies. Ethan, I know we didn't really have a whole lot of chance to prep for this move, and I know you were doing a million different things production-wise. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the signing of Brad Keller.
Well, my first recollection when you told me it was him as a starter and him being pretty poor, I wasn't fully aware he had moved to the bullpen, and after seeing those numbers, I mean, I'm all for it in terms of being a right-handed pitcher that can, complement more to what Strom and Alvarado do as lefties. And I do think when you kind of look at this group as a whole with everything that they have, there's a lot of depth to add to that and whatever kind of bridge relievers they might get in terms of if Taiwan has to come out of the pen, who was better last year. I mean, this is going to be a pretty solid group if a lot of these guys can repeat what they had seasons prior.
Yeah, I think that you now probably feel comfortable with 6 relievers in your bullpen.
That's pretty good.
I don't know many teams that can go, yeah, we got 6 guys that we trust in fairly high leverage spots.
Maybe only the Dodgers who just then throw in
starting just throw
pitchers.
Starters and have guys come off the IL and become relievers and then go sign Edwin Diaz and the funny thing with the Dodgers too is theoretically they should have never had to do that because they went out and acquired Kirby Yates, they went out and acquired Tanner Scott. They had guys that they thought were going to be the guys in those spots because they have been throughout their careers.
Yeah.
But I think now if you look at this group of 6, the 3 lefties being Alvarado, so I would slot it Alvarado, Strom, Banks, and Duran, closer, obviously different bill, but top righty Duran. I'd probably go Keller, Kerkering. Yeah. But if you want to flip them, depending on who's pitching better at the time, I'm okay with that as well. I think that they've assembled a group of 6 who you really only need a long man and maybe 1 or 2 other fringe. Maybe it's Zach McCambly. Maybe they bring a veteran in. Maybe they want to give Max Lazar another chance type of thing.
You got a lot to work with.
But you're talking about now the 7th and 8th relievers in a group. I don't have a whole lot of complaints about the bullpen as of today. I think it's pretty well structured at this point. You have an established, definitive, elite closer. You have a lefty who, while I know infuriates us at times with command, has closer stuff and can be just as dominant as your closer. And then you have a bunch of dudes who could slot in under that who fit bills, right? Tanner Banks, your Mr. Fixer-upper, get out of danger type of guy. Matt Strom, clean inning, you're trusting him. Brad Keller, I would imagine he'll probably get a lot of clean inning work from the right side, but I would bet early on he's probably the righty that they turn to in type of higher leverage spots. And I think now you're able to kind of balance these guys in a good spot where I feel pretty comfortable with 6 relievers in a bullpen.
Yeah, there's a lot of underrated depth. I guess that's a good way to put it. I think for, how the season ended and, you hope Thompson doesn't put these guys in situations that they're not used to, but there's a lot to work with. And I'm pretty excited for this group overall.
The one thing that I talked about a lot over the summer, specifically with Ranger Suarez, was average exit velocity, hard hit percentages, ground ball rates. Those 3 things combined, they mean a lot to me. Because if you keep the ball on the ground and nobody's hitting the ball that hard, then you're probably in a pretty good spot. 94th percentile, 99th percentile, 95th percentile for Brad Keller last season. And even if he takes a dip into the mid to high 80s, that's still you're going to get a pretty positive return from Keller. I know Broad Street Bully seems to be our anti-Brad Keller signing member of our chat today. I get it. You know, there's months where guys struggle. I've seen plenty of relievers. I've seen plenty of starters struggle over a month. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I expect, again, I've said this before, I'm not going to expect the exact same season that he provided last year. But if you even get the step down season, I think you're going to get a pretty good year out of Brad Keller.
2.5. I mean, that's
2.5 would be killer.
Yeah, like you can't.
Anything under 3 to me is a solid sign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, I'm pretty into this. I think that this is a good move. I think that they still need a little bit more. I'd still like to see a starting pitcher. I'd still like to see what they can improve upon on third base. But the bullpen at this point, I think is pretty set, with the exception of maybe bringing in another, veteran type reliever. Let's pause on the other side. Let's talk about the Tatsuya Imai sweepstakes, talk about where the Phillies lie, and then, of course, we'll finish with our Remember Me segment of the day. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge. We'll be right back after this. All right, so you found your special someone, that person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. Now you know what the next question is. Well, before you even pop that question, you're going to have a million different questions about the perfect ring for your partner. That's where our friends at Bucci Jewelry and Design come into play, because you don't know, or maybe you don't know what the 5 C's are, how much money you're able to spend, what your budget is going to get you. It is a stressful experience. I've been there. That's why working with our friends Joe and Michelle at Bucci Jewelry and Design has been a game changer. They make the process seamless. They make you feel like family. You're not just a customer to them. You are one of one. They actually listen to you. They help you figure out what your partner is going to love, and then their team designs something completely custom right there in-house. There's no pressure. There's no pushy sales vibes. It's just good people who love what they do and do what they love. So next time you need that perfect piece, go see Joe and Michelle at Bucci's Jewelry and Design. 30 plus years in the game, voted Philly's #1 jeweler year after year. Over 1,000 5-star reviews. You can check them out at BucciJewelers.com and tell them that we here at PHLY sent you. I'm a big believer in shopping local and staying local. And let me tell you about a local business that's been helping Philly homeowners and business owners stay pest-free. That's our friends over at Evans Pest Control. It's not a giant national brand or a chain. It's just an incredible family-owned, community-focused pest control company right here in the Philadelphia area that has been earning your trust for years now. They use state-of-the-art equipment, safe and effective treatment options, and the best part, their techs are constantly going through continuous training, so they are equipped to handle anything that your home or business may throw at them. Rodents, insects, termites, and yes, even bed bugs. They offer incredible priority service and consultation, and you know for a fact it's nice to deal with local people and not a call center. You're going to deal with somebody who grew up in this area, knows what it means to keep their house safe and their business safe. So if you see signs of pests or just want to prevent them before they start, reach out to our friends over at Evans Pest Control. Visit evanspestmgmt.com to schedule your free consultation. Once again, that's Evans Pest Control, evanspestmgmt.com. Welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zulli, Ethan Hartley, everybody hanging out in the chat. Thanks so much for being a part of today's show. While you're here, if you would not mind, hit that like button for a Brad Keller signing, or if you're interested in a Tatsuya Imai signing, and of course, hit that like button for all the hard work that Ethan has done behind the scenes today, especially considering it's the second straight day that we've kind of had to change our show 20 minutes before the show started. So he put up a poll today on the YouTube page. You can vote on that one. How you feeling about the Brad Keller signing? 77% of you are intrigued. You're excited. Let's go. 22% say, eh. Now, I wonder, before we get to the Imai conversation, Ethan, I wonder, do you think that I texted a buddy who is a massive baseball fan, and we talk the game all the time. He knows. He's not just a Phillies fan. He loves the game more than anything. And I texted him. I was like, yeah, I really like this signing. And he goes, not going to even lie to you. I'm not even going to pretend I know who he is. And I'm like, maybe that's a feel around Philadelphia. Maybe that's kind of a sense that people are getting is, oh, wow, I don't know who this is. And they just gave him $11 million until you go to look at the numbers that he posted. I think that people are going to be really pleasantly surprised with the stuff. James points out, right, increased velocity at age 30 kind of shows there's more room for growth. Interested to see what Caleb Cotham can do with him, as Ray says. I do think that this is a good move for the Phils. This is probably going to be a move that Phillies fans either don't recognize until they look at the stat sheet or they watch him on paper or watch him in spring training. But I do think that this is a guy that is going to be a pretty critical part of their bullpen for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I think probably the transition from starter to bullpen, at least for me, I think in the other portion of fans that only remember him as a starter, and obviously that being a more prevalent role, to then transitioning and being almost an experimental piece for the Cubs and turning out really, really well. I think that is another part of it where it's like you hear the name and Kansas City at the time was really mediocre. He was really, really poor. So you see this, and I even said to you, like, is this the bridge starter? I didn't even know he had transitioned into the bullpen, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and you get a phenomenal result in this. And yeah, I think with time, people will see the numbers and hopefully are able to kind of channel expectations and say, this guy put up a really good year last year. That's really hard to replicate, but as we've thrown out some numbers, a 2.5, 2.8, and anything below 3 is still really good and deservingly so of that money. So I think with time, people will see that he'll come into that role.
The first response on our Twitter account when I said Phillies have added to their bullpen with Brad Keller, first response is, run support, please. Don't let this mask everything we talked about in the first 25 minutes. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, they still need to figure something out. There's no question about it. I think we can also take this from like I always talk about bullpen pool money, I think is separate from everything else that goes on in baseball. Like, I think about, you have big-time free agent offensive players. You have big-time free agent starting pitching, and those have a pool, and you have a certain amount of money that you're willing to spend, whether it's to internally re-sign your guys or to externally re-sign somebody. But I think that rotational pool money is separate to everything else that goes on, because you could sign a reclamation project. Relievers bounce back up and down all the time. I mean, Ethan, how many times have we seen a guy who pitches to a 4 ERA 1 year, signs a minor league deal, has a killer season, gets a 2-year, $30 million deal, stinks it up, gets DFA'd, has a killer year? You know what I mean? Like, relievers.
We just saw that with who did Toronto just sign? Cody Ponce.
Oh, Cody Ponce, who went to Korea.
Yeah, he's been out of the
dominant
league forever. Then he gets a big deal because he's huge. He's so big physically, and they believe that they can work with those physical tools and refine his mechanics and be an overall much better pitcher than he was beforehand. It is so pins and needles in baseball where it can be down to just the littlest things that change everything for your performance. Whether and that can go on either end. To kind of go on the other side, Jeff Hoffman, I think 2 years ago was asked this question in an interview I saw, and he said, "Yeah, I just stopped caring about all the little things, and I just went out there and started throwing. I focused so much more on my physical traits instead of being so mechanical." And that was a guy who was DFA'd multiple times throughout his career. Gets picked up by the Phillies, is reworked, retooled, looks phenomenal, and goes to the moon.
And you remember the story when before he signed with the Phillies, he was like moments away from going to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had an offer in place. And I think the report was Japan offered him more money, but the Phillies were willing to commit to him as a major leaguer. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the difference. Sometimes it happens, right? Sometimes it does just kind of change the dynamic of, guys' careers. And then you could play the was once a starter, move to the bullpen. Obviously the most extreme example of that ever. Mariano Rivera was a starter at the beginning of his career. Wasn't very good. Moved to the bullpen, basically became a one-pitch pitcher, became the greatest closer of all time. Roy Halladay got sent down at one point from the Toronto Blue Jays. Cliff Lee got sent down at one point from Cleveland. Worked out pretty well for those guys, right? Like, these things happen. Success is not linear, especially in baseball. Success isn't linear anywhere, but especially in baseball, success is not linear, and you have ups and downs. And, I think maybe you start off as a starter, you're not quite there, you move to the bullpen, you find your stride. You might do it at 30 years old.
There's so many factors, I think, in baseball compared to other sports that are so, outside the players themselves, because it is so, stationary, I guess is the right word. So year after year, things can always change just down to the littlest details. Even playing in a different ballpark, like you never have that issue in any other sport where that can totally change somebody's career.
Sure. I mean, the dimensions of a field are the only place where, the NFL field is 100 yards long and 53 and a half yards wide, right? The NBA court's the same size. The NHL rink are all the same size. Sure, I get that. There's factors to it. And that's kind of what makes baseball quirky and unique and stupid at the same time. That's why I always call it the most ridiculous, stupid, beautiful game in the world. You know what? I think we'll probably save the Tatsuya Imai conversation for Friday. Because unless he signs in the next 48 hours, I think we can still kind of have that conversation. Because I do want to get to our Remember Me segment of the day. So let's pause. On the other side, we'll wrap the show up with our Remember Me segment of the day, which will be I think it's going to be an interesting one. Because I think you're either going to crush it or you in the chat are going to have a difficult time. And I'm not sure if there's an in-between. So I'll see how it goes. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge. We'll be right back after this. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with our friends over at Bet365. You find out why 90 million users worldwide have teamed up with Bet365 because they are the live in-game betting pioneers. You can get in on constantly changing lines, and you can live stream 780,000 different events each and every year across 78 different sporting platforms. They offer awesome early payout across the NHL. If your team goes up by 3 goals at any point, your bet is going to be marked as a winner. And how about this? Right now, new users who sign up with Bet365, use that promo code on the bottom of the screen there, PHLY365, deposit $10, place a bet for just $5, and you'll get $200 back in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. You can use that bonus bet money on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and a heck of a lot more. You find out why it's never ordinary with our friends over at Bet365. You must be 21 and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Do you really want one of your starting pitchers pinch hitting in a big spot? Of course you don't. It's not worth the risk, the time, or the money. You want to keep your stars focused on what they do best. And the same can be said for your business. You don't want your top people buried in operations, the tedious, time-consuming, redundant activities that not only take their time away, but also wear them down. You want to make sure your impact players stay fresh and focused on what they do best. That's where our friends at Togo come in. They're an integrated part of your team that take the work off your starter's plate so they can focus on making your company and your business move forward. Every engagement starts with free process mapping and engineering, and there is not a dime billed to you until the real work begins. And with each Togo program, they include a dedicated staff, custom automation, and a US-based process engineer team who act as your quarterback while you stay in control. At Togo, they turn your playbook into performance. You call the shots, they execute your way, and they advise along the journey. Visit harnesstogo.com to scale smarter, work faster, and stay focused on winning. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Final segment here for us here on this Wednesday afternoon. Let's get into our Remember Me segment of the day, which, as you know, it's time to put you, Ethan, and the chat into the torture chamber, the spin cycle, to go through your baseball trivia memories. And today's category is going to be players that played for multiple NL East teams in their career. So I was going through the Phillies 2025 roster this morning, and I noticed that there were a ton of guys who played for at least 2 NL East teams. And it came out that just on the team, based on the 2025, everybody that played for the team, 11 different Phillies last year have also played for another NL East team at some point in their career. So today's category is going to be players who spent at least time with at least 2 NL East teams, and some maybe even more. So none of these guys are active, and we will go back to this is going to stretch a little bit into the early 2000s or the mid 2000s, but these guys have all played from 2010 on. So let's get to player number 1, probably the most well-known of the group. This player played in the National League East from 2008 to 2018. He was a 3-time All-Star, a 2-time Silver Slugger winner. I don't even remember this happening, but finished second in the National League MVP voting in 2016. Chris Bryant won the award that year. This guy finished second. This player won the 2015 NLCS MVP. I kind of forgot how good this guy was for a really long period of his career.
Oof. 2016 MVP. Chris Bryant won that year. Who would have finished
Chris Bryant won the MVP
second?
that year. This guy was a really good hitter. Career 296. Had
Wow.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different years of 290 or better.
Broad Street Bully says Daniel Murphy.
It is Daniel Murphy.
Wow.
It's a good pull, Broad Street Bullies. This is, in fact, Daniel Murphy. Played 12 years in the big leagues, of which 10 of them came with the New York Mets and the Washington Nationals. Yeah, he finished second with the Nats in the MVP. He had 47 doubles, 25 home runs, 104 RBI, a 347 batting average, and he led the National League in slugging and OPS that season.
Wow.
Hell of a year. Honestly, really good career for Daniel Murphy. Yes, good pull by a lot of you. A couple of different people saying Daniel Murphy in the chat as well. Well done. All right, let's get to player number 2. 13-year career with 9 different teams. This guy was a 3-time All-Star, a 7-time 20-plus save guy. And this guy has the distinction of being the only player in baseball history to play for all 5 National League East teams.
That's pretty cool. Only one guy ever done that.
His first year in the big leagues, he played for a team known at that time as the Florida Marlins.
Oof. That probably makes it a little older. When did he play with the Phillies?
I cannot give you that. That will give it away. I will say he completed the cycle in his final year. He made 20 appearances for the Braves and pitched to a 7.5 ERA. 2020 COVID shortened year, he led the league in saves with 16.
Philly Rick and Orphans Minge guess Antonio.
It is not Antonio Alfonseca. It's a good guess. Alfonseca pitched for at least 2. Obviously, Phillies Marlins. I don't know if he pitched for any of the other teams. Pitched 1 year in Atlanta. So he pitched for 3. Never pitched for the Mets. Never pitched for the Nationals. Tyler Clippard's a hell of a guess, and I was very close to putting him on here, but he never pitched for the Phillies. Kimbrel did not pitch for the Marlins, nor the Nationals, I don't think.
Brad Hand?
It is Brad Hand.
Wow.
Yes, Brad Hand was on the 2022 team. That's why I couldn't give it away to
Right,
you.
yeah.
Because it was the World Series team. But it is, in fact, Brad Hand. Yeah, Brad Hand pitched from 2011 to 2015 with the Marlins. Pitched for 16 games with the Mets in 21, 41 games with the Nationals in 21, pitched for the Phillies in 22, and then wrapped it up his career with the Braves in 2023. But yeah, the only player in baseball history to ever play for all 5 National League East teams.
Led the league in saves during COVID.
Yeah.
That's what I fixated on as soon as you said that, and I did not think it'd be him.
He did it with the Guardians. Cleveland.
Wow.
But yes, Brad Hand, number 2. All right, let's get to the third one. And I'm going to tell you this right now, Ethan. If you or anybody in the chat gets this, y'all are sickos. Because I pulled this guy from like the recesses of my brain that I haven't thought about in a long time.
No shot.
This guy was an 11-year vet who played with 8 different teams. The clue number 2 I thought was interesting. The Braves had 2 first-round picks that year. They spent one on him. The other one was spent on Adam Wainwright.
Wow.
In the 2000 draft. They ended up trading Adam Wainwright in a trade that got them J.D. Drew. And this guy has the distinction of being one of 2 players to play for all 5 American League East teams.
Yeah, this one this is way before my time, especially if picked in 2000. And
This guy played until 2023.
Really?
Yes.
That's wow.
No, excuse me. I lied. I'm looking at the wrong page. This guy played until...
I was going to say, that's like...
No, my apologies. That was Brad Hand. This guy played until 2016.
Okay. Yeah.
And while you think about it, I want to say thank you to everybody on our streaming services, all of our streaming platforms, Roku, Samsung, Xfinity. Head on over to allphly.com to watch the rest of the show. We are officially in overtime. Yeah, this guy played until 2016. Played for 2 National League East. Jesus, Broad Street Bullies.
Wow.
Are you kidding me? Pull of the century on that one. It's Kelly Johnson, who played a bulk of his career with the Atlanta Braves, but played for the Blue Jays, the Rays, the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Baltimore Orioles in a 3-year span. Kelly Johnson is the right answer.
Wow.
Unbelievable pull by you, Broad Street Bullies. Well done. This guy was not a bad player. Had a couple of really fine seasons in Atlanta. Went to Arizona, wasn't very good. Bounced around the American League East, and then kind of was a utility player. But I had a really, 2007, 2008, 2010, hit 280 or better in all 3 seasons. Couple of 20 home run years. Was a solid player. Kind of flash in the pan. But, dude, Provolone John, you ain't kidding, man. Some baseball sickos in the chat today. Well done, y'all. That was unbelievable. But, yeah, Kelly Johnson was number 1. That was wild. Good pull. That's our Remember Me segment of the day. Appreciate you all for, and I think that's pretty much going to wrap up today's show. So I appreciate you all for being here. Whether you're here all the time or you're a first-time viewer and you want to come back, we love you just the same, and I'm appreciative of you for being here. So on your way out, smash that like button. A big thank you to Ethan Hartley for producing and co-hosting today's show. We will be back on Friday. And a reminder, Monday, our second Reading Terminal Market show of the Christmas season this time, of the holiday season. We're going to do another Reading Terminal Market show. We'll be on at 11:30, I believe, on Reading Terminal Market Day, but we'll confirm with you on Friday. Coming up, we'll be back on Friday at noon for our next PHLY Phillies podcast. Love you all so much for being a part of today's show. Coming up, the rest of the day still to come up. 2 o'clock, PHLY Eagles show. 3 o'clock, PHLY Sixers. 4 o'clock, PHLY Flyers. And we will air our Cheap Seats show later today at 7 o'clock. Really, really appreciate you all for being a part of today's show. Again, big thanks to Ethan for producing and co-hosting. We'll be back on Friday afternoon for more Phillies off-season talk right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. Talk to you then. See you.
We all silly like the mayor.